If you're going to get a preacher, get somebody who reads the Bible, okay? But Elijah is out in the wilderness away from everybody else. And twice, God asked him, what are you doing here again? I didn't tell you to come out here, was the implication. I didn't say you should come out in the wilderness. What are you doing out here? And he was running away because he's afraid because they're having a battle. There's a battle going on in Israel between the guys who are worshiping another god named Baal, that god. So I always don't know how to say it, but Baal, I think, Baal. And so there's a competition and a battle and a struggle and a conflict. So Elijah runs, afraid, out into the wilderness, hides in a cave. And God asked him twice, I don't think I told you to come out here. What are you doing here? And Elijah has a long spiel about what he's doing out there. But the real answer is how he got out in the cave. He got out there because he was really afraid of what was going to happen to him. So at the end, God appears to him not in the earthquake and not in the fire and not in the wind. He appears in the silence. And when he's in the silence, he gets courage to go back. God says, now it's time for you to go back and anoint a new king, anoint a new prophet. I'll give you strength. My silence, being with me in silence, now you can go back. I never asked you to come out here in the first place, actually. It's funny how we have so many other fears in our lives. I mean, Elijah had a real physical one, like they're coming after me. But when I think about how many different things I'm afraid of, maybe people are afraid of, it runs a huge gamut. Let me just share a couple of them with you, and if I don't hit on one that is you exactly, then you come up with your own and see if you can fill in the blank. What is it you're afraid of? Because Jesus in the story of him walking on the water, twice the disciples are terrified, and he's always telling them, please don't be afraid. I'm trying to tell you, don't be afraid. Which leads me to believe they probably were afraid, or he wouldn't have to tell them so many times. Which is good to know, because he has got to tell me a million times, because I'm afraid of so many things. Just every little thing. You know, I got in a car accident about 10 days ago, and now when I go through the intersection, I grip the wheel a little harder. And I'm driving real carefully, like, it's more dangerous out here than I thought. By the way, a little side note. I went back out to the intersection where I had the accident, and because I wanted to figure out exactly what happened for my own self. I must have been at the intersection for about 10 minutes, going corner to corner, feeling how all the lights work. It was down here at Wurzbach and Bandera, big intersection. I was amazed. I think in the 10 minutes I was there walking around, I heard at least 4 people honk their horn, hurry up, get out of the way, and people running the red light, running the yellow light. Everybody's mad, people burning their tires again. It's like, wow, it's more dangerous out here than I knew. Gotta watch your step out there. That's just one thing now, that's a little thing. It's funny, you know, I've been divorced, got divorced about 2 years ago, so I'm kind of nervous about the whole relationship thing. But the problem is, I'm afraid of that, but I'm also afraid of being alone too. It's like, oh my goodness. Boy, you're in a conundrum, aren't you? I'm afraid of messing up the church. Now, I've been here 7 years, and I've done priesty stuff for a long time, but I can't ever shake the fear that I'm going to do something really wrong and really screw it up. You know, we're about to do a capital funds campaign. I mean, suppose that goes south, or suppose a lot of things could go wrong. Suppose you do a crappy sermon. It's like, oh, that could happen. Not that it's ever happened before. I'm sure this won't be it. You ever get afraid of disappointing your parents? So I hope I don't mess this up. You know, parents will be disappointed in me. I still get afraid of messing up with my dad's money. He gave me money out of the inheritance. My family left us money. I'm still afraid of messing up spending it. Because he worked so hard to get it. I think, oh, I don't want to mess up, lose all his money. Of course, it's been my money now for 10 years, but I still think of it as his money, and I don't want to mess it up. Always afraid of Well, in sports I get afraid. I was a pretty good tennis player. I was better than a lot of people, but I didn't have a good head, really. For a long time I got by just being a good tennis player, but when you get in the upper ranks and the higher competition, that's where the people who have a better head excel. Not the best strokes, but the best mental capacity. So whenever you see great athletes on the court or athletes on the field, the best ones are not really much better physically. The best ones are all better mentally. Those guys can face fear, take the pressure, not afraid of losing, not afraid of failing. Or if they are, then they can overcome that. But I used to lose to people who are not as good as me because I didn't have a good head for it. Afraid of losing, afraid of failing, afraid of screwing up. For a long time I was afraid of God because I thought God was real perfectionistic, and I was always afraid every time I messed up, God was like a cop in the sky ready to arrest me and take me to jail and throw away the key. It's a wonder I can even stand here. I should be so neurotic with all my different fears. It's amazing how many things we're afraid of in life. Just tons of them. Some people I've heard, they're like afraid of losing weight because if they lost weight and their body changed, so then they might be attracted to other folks and they have to be in a relationship. And they keep the weight on in order to not get into a relationship with somebody else. Oh boy, what a mess. Of course, some people are afraid of violence within their family. We look out at the congregation, everybody looks like they're kind of, everything's going fine, but almost certainly somebody in the congregation has had some kind of violence against them in their family. Who has the strength to confront a family member about something violent? And even home is not a safe place. Or afraid of running out of money or not having enough resources. For some people, it's much more to the point than all this interior stuff. So many fears. Fears kind of fall into two categories, easily spoken. You can be afraid of the past, or you can be afraid of the future. Afraid of the past because we have regrets or guilt or problems. You say, or something bad happened. You think, it's going to happen again. You think about all the mistakes or failures or brokenness or screw-ups and think, oh no. Or you can go in the future and say, well, what if this and what if that? And the future is unknowable, but we're afraid of it anyway. What if this happens? What if that happens? And the demons of the past and the demons of the future just eat us up. By the way, if you're not going to be afraid of, if it's fearful in the past and it's fearful in the future, where would be the safe place to land? Yeah, there's not much to fear in the very moment you're in, and which is about the only thing you can control at all, is how you react to the present moment. But so if you really want a great prescription for how not to be afraid, don't go back, don't go forward, just stay right here. Yeah, we're about to come up to the political crazy season when we're going to elections, and we have two parties in our country. Mostly two big parties, and I'm sure the closer we get to election day, both parties will whip out this gigantic fear card and say, don't vote for that other people because they're horrible. Be afraid of them. We're not sure what we're doing, but definitely be afraid of them. And the Democrats will say, those Republicans, they kick puppies and want to burn your grandmother and they want to take your house. And the Democrats, the other guys will say, no, they're horrible. Don't be afraid of the other people. They're going to sell us off to Canada and I don't know. But they'll play the be afraid card. And Jesus says all the time, please don't be afraid. In the story itself today from the Gospel, if you read it, even at a surface level, you see all the ways that fear is built into the story. For one thing, when the disciples are out in the boat, the wind and the waves are blowing the boat around. And the wind is something to be feared, and the waves are, you might look at it like this. Our fears, they come at you like wave after wave, like they never stop. Hard to stop them. And out there on the boat, it says, the wind was strong and the waves kept beating the boat. Our fears and things that terrify us and we worry about, just endless, one after another after another. One passes and you start with another one. It knocks you around, takes you off course, could even sink the boat. And the wind, that's an easy metaphor. Lots of people say, you can give a blessing, by the way. May the wind always be at your back. But if the wind is in the front of you, that's a sign that the life is going to be hard. And as one of the famous rock and roll says, rock and roll songs say, I said it was from the Eagles last sermon, but somebody else said it was Mr. Seeger. I'm not sure which one. Maybe you could tell me. Running against the wind? You know that lyric? Which one is it? Oh, I quoted the Eagles last time. See, don't know the Bible, don't know your rock and roll. But to run against the wind is a symbol of what life can feel like. Waves and wind. And even just to be on the water. I mean, the water is in the Bible is always a symbol of great power that is almost out of control. The water is the place where underneath you is unknown. And it's dark. And to go out on the water was always treacherous. And finally, they see a ghost. Of all things that's going to come up, they got the wind and they got the waves and they're out on the water. And then they think a ghost is chasing them. And then finally it says the ghost came to them in the middle of the night. It was early morning, which means like right after 12. I mean, real early, like just past midnight. So in the darkest night, in the middle of the wind and the waves, out on the water, being chased by a ghost. And it says they were very afraid. And as soon as the ghost appears, or they think it's a ghost, God is coming to them, but they don't recognize it, and they're afraid of it. And he says, look, hey, do not be afraid, it's me. It is I. Take heart, and please don't be afraid. And then Peter says, well, if it is you, let me walk on the water, I'll come to you right now. Jesus says, all right, get out of the boat. Peter gets out of the boat. To me, that's the more fascinating part of the story than Jesus. And Jesus is the hero of the story. He's the one with the divine power. So he gets in the water, but then it says, oh, Peter gets on the water and starts walking towards Jesus on the water. Go back and check it. You think, oh, it wasn't Peter, it was just Jesus. No, it was Peter. And then as soon as he got to be afraid, that's when he began to sink. He says, he noticed how strong the wind was and got to be afraid. Now he begins to sink in the waves. Jesus says, you should not have gotten afraid. See, it made you sink. And immediately he reaches out his hand and gets them out of the water to go back to the boat. Of all the things we're afraid of, and there are a lot of them, Jesus would like us to overcome those fears. Get out of the boat even. And face the fears. Get out of the boat. Get on the water. Face the waves. Walk through the wind. In the middle of the night. To something you thought was a ghost. Jesus says, yeah, that's what I want. Do not be afraid. You must face your fears, or they will eat you alive. You will not be fully alive as long as you're completely afraid. Many of you know I have a couple dogs, and I was a big fan while I was watching TV. I haven't had TV for a while, but I used to watch The Dog Whisperer a lot, Mr. Cesar Millan. He's a dog psychologist. What does he do? He trains people and rehabilitates dogs from crazy people. I remember one show. There was a big Great Dane looking dog, a big kind of waist-high Great Dane. And Cesar Millan was a kind of shortish Mexican guy. I saw him in public, and he's not a real tall guy. Kind of big and stocky, but not very tall. And the dog was up to his waist. This big, ferocious dog. very powerful breed. And he said, look, it's not the breed, it's what's in the dog that makes a difference. And so the dog was afraid. You know what he was afraid of? He was afraid of walking on the kitchen floor. He was afraid of hard surfaces that were shiny. The dog would not go in the kitchen, would not walk on anything that looked like it was slippery or hard or shiny. And if you know that show at all, Caesar's always saying, well, you need a pack leader to help the dog get over its fear. Caesar says, I'll do this. He takes the dog, puts a leash on him, puts on his pack leader attitude so the dog knows he's the leader, says, we're going on the floor. And the owner said, no, he'll never go on the floor. I've done this 1,000,000 times. He is terrified of the floor. You will never get him on the floor. Says you need a pack leader who will take the dog on the floor. There's only one way to do it. You got to go. Go. So he gets the dog and he leashes him up and says, we're going in the kitchen. And he walks up to the threshold. The dog freezes. He says, I'm not going in the kitchen. He says, oh, yes, you are. And so he took him back around. He says, okay, we'll try this again. He walked him back into the living room. And he got like a running start. So we are running into the kitchen. I'm going to go ahead and you're coming, dog. So he gets a little pace up. The dog's right behind him. He gets him in the kitchen. There's only one way to do your fears. You just got to go straight up. Right? You can't what is the option? You either have to do it or don't. Caesar said, as long as I'm the pack leader and the dog trusts me, we'll overcome the dog's fears. You don't mind the analogy? Jesus is on the water, says, you come. But he said, well, it's windy and it's dark and there's waves and I think there's ghosts out there. He says, well, I'm with you. It's time to come. Come. What is the fear that's in your life? There's 1,000,000 of them. They come at you like wave after wave. They will tear us apart or just make us shrink back. And we'll never be a full life as long as we're mostly operating out of fear. Jesus says, whatever your fear is, please, don't be afraid. I will go with you. And if you begin to sink because of your fear and you think you're going to go under the water, immediately I will reach out my hand and I will pull you up. That's the deal. But you got to get out of the boat. And you got to walk in the dark, and you got to walk in the wind, you got to walk in the waves, and you got to walk on the water. Just don't be afraid. So I'll try and take my sermon to heart, which is a hard thing to do. You know, the best sermons and the best preachers are always about themselves, you know. I could put more oomph into this sermon because it's me. I have a hunch you're not too far behind. You guys are probably still in the boat. But I'm going to get out of the boat. And I'm going to focus on Jesus in front of me. I'm going to try not to look at the things that frighten me. I'm not going to look at the waves. They frighten me. I'm not going to look at the water. I could sink. I'm not going to look at the wind. I could get blown about. I'm not going to look at the ghosts. Could be chasing me. I'm not going to look. I'm just going to look straight ahead. I'm not looking at the past where things screwed up. I'm not looking at the future where they could go wrong. I just want to face the things that frighten me and go straight ahead. I'm going to take Jesus' hand and walk the water. And you do the same. Whatever it is that frightens you, don't let it control you. You can face your fears. With God's help, take Jesus' hand. Let your fears be under your feet. May your fears be trodden upon as you and Jesus walk together on the water. Jesus says to you, come, let's go. I offer this to you in God's name, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.